Hi, I'm Saket, and I'm the co-chair of Outreach for SWE at UCI, and welcome back to SWE at UCI's Outreach channel.
Hi, I'm Liz, and I'm the other Outreach co-chair. Today we will be asking a UCI electrical engineering student 73 questions. How do you like to take notes in class?
So I'm pretty old school in taking notes. I like the traditional pen and paper or pencil and paper rather. I specifically like spiral notebooks, so I'll have an individual notebook for every class that I take notes in. It does make my backpack pretty heavy, so that's the downside, but I prefer having physical notes than typing it on the computer. I feel like I learn better writing it out by hand.
What is one thing that surprised you about UCI?
So because I kind of grew up around UCI, I didn't think I could be surprised that much. But while Irvine itself is kind of a bubble, UCI is a bubble. So it kind of felt like a different world. Like I felt like I wasn't in Irvine. I felt like I was just on a college campus, and that was kind of it. It feels separate, and that's something that I really enjoyed. Also, growing up, I didn't realize how many people actually know about UCI. I thought it was kind of like a middle of nowhere little town somewhere, like just a college. I happen to have college here, but apparently a lot of people know about UCI. So that was kind of a shock, but a good shock. I like having so many people around.
What is one thing that surprised you about your major?
I guess one thing that surprised me is how diverse it is. Because even though it's pretty difficult, well, it's not all circuits classes. I thought I would only be taking just circuits classes, learning about components of circuits and just circuits all 4 years. That's not the case. It's mostly circuits, yes, but there's more to it than that. I didn't realize there would be signals. We learn about like analog signals, discrete time signals, like all of those classes are really interesting to learn about. I didn't realize I would be doing all of those. And just also the applications of electrical engineering. I don't think I realized how broad the discipline it really is until I started at UCI and started actually taking the classes.
Have you ever studied abroad? And if so, where? And if not, where would you like to study abroad?
So I really, really wanted to study abroad. Part of it, again, is that I kind of wanted to get the experience of not being in my hometown. I kind of wanted to try and study somewhere else. So I did try looking into at least study abroad. I went to the study abroad fair, the center. I actually started picking out classes as well to study abroad, but then it kind of didn't work out. It's better for like your earlier years when you don't have very specialized classes, because once it's specialized, it's hard to find those. So yeah, I think the countries that I was primarily looking at were English speaking. So I was looking into England, Ireland, Scotland, Australia. And then I was also looking at Germany because they have pretty good engineering programs there as well.
Have you been to one of their career fairs before?
So yes, I actually started going to the career fairs, I think my first week at UCI. I went to the very first one in my freshman year, just to ask questions about, like, try to find out what the companies were, see what they were looking for. So maybe I could kind of get ready for the next few years when I would come back. So yeah, I've been going since my freshman year.
How are engineering classes online for you?
Difficult, very difficult. In general, engineering classes get more difficult every quarter. So not only are classes getting more difficult every quarter naturally, now they're all online. So you also have that component of, okay, I was used to having like a separate space where I would study and then coming home, and now you kind of have that combined atmosphere, and then you also have like different family pressures and things like that, which you didn't realize you would have. So yeah, so the entire online experience has been difficult, but hopefully we'll get there. It's not an excuse. We gotta push through.
What is one tip you would give for taking classes online?
I would definitely suggest getting into a routine. Regardless if you have consistent lecture times or not, which I know a lot of people have asynchronous classes, find a time that you're going to study for that class. Like, put a chunk in your day that's like, you know what, every week at this time to this time, this is when I'm going to study this. Create that habit, wake up at a certain time every day. If you can, try and get that set schedule because it's going to help a lot. I am not very good at this, but this is something that I'm trying to do. And the more I do it, the more I find that it is very helpful to have that kind of set routine. Also, if you can, I highly recommend trying to find a separate space, study from where you're like sleeping. So if you have like a dining area that you can study in, or an office, or go to a different bedroom to study in, I think that could be very helpful. So yeah, if you can, do that. If you can't, good luck. I'm sure you can find some habits that'll help you.
What is one tip you would give to an incoming student in your major?
Electrical engineering is difficult. There's going to be times when you're going to be like, is this for me? Like, do you enjoy it? Is this really what you wanted to do? One thing I can say is don't lose hope, even when it gets difficult, because just realize how valuable this knowledge is going to be. Electrical engineering is everywhere. Like, it's going to be useful for you once you graduate. So it'll be worth it. So just don't lose hope. Look at your end goal, strive for it. That's all you can really do. But also make sure you don't underestimate your classes too. So yes, they're going to be difficult, but if your first year is easy, don't think it's going to be easy the entire time. Don't ever like stop working hard. Always be striving to learn more and more and more, because it's going to help you later on. And every class builds up on itself, so make sure your foundation is good.
Where do you like to go off campus during your free time?
So, I mean, like when I have a short break, I'll just go to UTC, grab food. But I mean, one of my favorite things to do in Irvine in general is escape rooms. There are a ton of escape rooms in Irvine, and that's just something that I love to do with friends and family. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to do in Irvine.
Have you ever been inside the Infinity Fountain?
So I'm not sure if I have. Definitely not as a student at UCI. I think when I was a kid, there might have been a few times when I would have to like fish my dog out of the fountain, ergo having to go in. But no, definitely not since becoming a student.
Do you like to go to UCI sporting events?
So I do go to UCI sporting events. I've been to quite a few basketball and volleyball games at UCI, both prior to becoming a student and after becoming a student. And I've enjoyed them. They're a lot of fun to go to, and I really recommend it. I really want to branch out to other sports though, because I've only been to basketball and volleyball games. But yeah, in the future, hopefully I can go to some track events and things like that as well.
Do you have a favorite boba place near UCI?
My favorite boba place near UCI is probably Cha, just because it has a more nostalgic feeling to me, because it was the first boba place that I ever tried, and it was the first one, I guess, close to UCI. Share Tea is very recent. So yeah, Cha's somewhere that I've been going since I was a kid. But I have to say it's a little bit overpriced, so I tend to go to Share Tea more, but Cha will always be my favorite.
Have you ever ordered from the zotbots before?
I have never ordered from zotbots, but they're adorable, and maybe one day I will.
Have you ever fallen asleep in class before?
So I have not fallen asleep in class before. which is kind of surprising considering how often I take 8 a.m.s. So I've definitely gotten close and have fought off drowsiness before, but I've never actually fallen asleep.
What is one misconception you had about your major?
So I honestly thought that I would only be taking circuit classes. I didn't realize how much would go into an actual electrical engineering degree. So I was pleasantly surprised by how diverse the classes would be. Also, this is weird to say, but I didn't realize how many normal people there would be. I thought electrical engineering was like literally the geekiest kind of engineering degree, and it would be just a lot of very strange people, but everyone's very normal, which was kind of surprising. Pleasantly surprising again.
Why did you choose this one major over other similar majors?
So the majors that are kind of similar to electrical engineering and come into the same family are CPE, which is computer engineering, CSC, which is computer science and engineering, and then CS, which is computer science. So I kind of knew that I was more interested in the hardware part of it. So kind of CS and CSC wasn't really something I was looking into. The reason I chose electrical over computer engineering is because computer engineering is very specialized versus electrical engineering is a much more broad and diverse hardware. So I wanted that diversity because I knew that I probably wouldn't be specifically working on computers later on, but I would definitely be working with something electrically related. So yeah, so in the end, electrical engineering made the most sense to me out of all of those.
How difficult was it for you to choose your major?
So it took kind of hours of debate for me to truly choose my major. With my parents, we kind of sat down, spent a few hours looking at statistics of different schools, what it would be. But like I've said before, I was kind of interested in engineering in general. So I knew that no matter what major I went into, I could switch between the different engineering degrees from there. So I wasn't too concerned about that. So for me to actually choose which major, it was more of a numbers game in terms of how many they would accept and things like that.
If you could change one thing about UCI, what would you change?
I don't know if this is specifically about UCI, but in terms of what I could change, if I could change anything about my degree, I wish that electrical engineers took more CS, computer science classes. I understand that if you want a more CS class, you could take a CSC or some other kind of class, but I wish in general, in terms of EECS, I wish our school offered more computer science courses. So for people that, like me, that were just interested and wanted to learn more about it, that's just like a useful life skill. I wish I had more of an opportunity to take those.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate UCI's food?
So I give UCI's food around a 6 or a 7, which might be generous, but I think it's more of a 6, but I think that's kind of where I lie. Because it's good, it's edible, it's decent. I never really disliked it. But sometimes the flavors were just so bizarre to me. Like I'm not used to cooking with a lot of salt, and I don't like things that are super sweet, and sometimes UCI food does not find the right balance, and my stomach would get like upset with what they would offer. But in terms of taste, for the most part, it was fine. It didn't really bother me as much as it seemed to bother others.
Which dining hall do you like better?
I don't think I have a favorite. I kind of just went to the dining hall that was closest to me at the time. So like if I was in the engineering area, I would go to Pippin's, which is now Brandywine. Or if I was around the arts area, or if it was like breakfast or dinner, I would always go to Anteatery. Um, I think I liked Anteatery more because just because of the atmosphere rather than the food, because the food was the same everywhere, for me at least.
Which on-campus library do you prefer?
Definitely prefer the science library. That's my go-to spot and one of my favorite spots to study on campus. Fourth floor, science library all the way.
Do you prefer morning, afternoon, or evening classes?
So in general, I am not a morning person, but I tend to stack all of my classes in the mornings strategically. I feel like I am much more organized and efficient if I start my day early. So I tend to put all my classes as like 8 a.m.s and stacking them back to back until maybe like afternoon, because then I have the rest of the day to study, which is when I am probably most alert. So yeah, that's kind of my preference. This is what I found works the best for me. And I really don't like evening classes. I just don't like walking around campus at night, and just in general, not my favorite time. I don't like that.
Do you have a favorite place to sit in class?
It'll depend on the room I'm in, and if the professor is writing on the whiteboard or chalkboard, or or if they use a projector. I'd say on average, I tend to sit in like the 3rd through 6th row from the front, because I like to be close enough where I can see everything, but then I don't want to be like right in the professor's face. So yes, typically 3rd, 6th row, somewhere in the middle is my preferred area.
What range of units do you prefer to take per quarter?
So I typically take between 18 to 20 units per quarter, which is quite a lot. But I like to take a lot of extra classes, so that's why I tend to have such a large number. And then that'll fluctuate depending on which class I'm taking, because labs are typically only with 1 or 2 units and things like that. So typically between 18 and 20 though.
What has been your hardest major class at UCI?
So probably my hardest class so far has been EECS 170A and EECS 152A. Both of those are classes I'm taking this quarter, and they're quite difficult conceptual-wise. But here's the thing: this answer changes every single quarter, because every single quarter the classes are harder. So if you ask me last quarter, it would probably be 70B. So yeah, and these classes are also more difficult because it's COVID and they're online. So yeah, those are the hardest classes that I have taken or am taking so far.
What has been your easiest class at UCI?
So ECS 1, which is a seminar introductory course to electrical engineering, is definitely the easiest course. Well, especially for my major, because that class just requires you to come in once a week, listen to the lectures, talk about really interesting topics, and then you like maybe have a quiz, 1 quiz a week, and then you had a 1-page writing assignment at the very end of the class. So it was low commitment, overall really interesting and easy class. Non-engineering wise, easiest class is sociology. Either sociology 3 or psychology 7A with Lofgren. Both are kind of low commitment, but what made psychology 7A easy was they gave you the answer to the midterm and final early on. So pretty much you just had to memorize those, and then you could get an A in the class easily. So it was pretty easy A.
What is something you wrote about in your UC college essays?
So for the talents essay, I wrote about some of the experience I had in choir. I was a part of the Southern California Children's Chorus, And we got to perform in places like Carnegie Hall and Segerstrom Center for the Arts, which are two amazing venues, and just the whole process of the practice leading up to it, the entire experience of actually doing it, dealing with the pressure, things like that. All of that together kind of taught me a lot, and it was just really impactful experiences for me. So I wrote about those. And then I also wrote about something that's very cliche for the challenges essay. I wrote about a sports injury, which had a large kind of a mental toll on me at the time, as well as just a physical toll on my body. So yeah, those are two of the topics that I wrote about.
What resources do you like to use to choose your classes?
So every quarter I use zotcourse and the UCI course catalog for your plan for my major. I tend to put all my courses and everything in zotcourse and then look at the different variations that I can do. And then I just use the catalog just to make sure that I'm taking what I need to at the time. And then I also have my own 4-year plan that I created. I think freshman year, I created that 4-year plan and I've tried to stick with it. And then I try to use Rate My Professor sometimes, but oftentimes for my classes, I don't have a choice. They're only offered 1 quarter and they're only offered with 1 professor. So I usually don't pay much attention to Rate My Professor because it doesn't really mean much.
How would you describe the UCI community?
I would say overall, the community at UCI is full of very friendly people. It's actually what drew me in initially to attending UCI. It was one of my favorite parts of Celebrate UCI was just meeting everyone. I like that everyone's also energetic and welcoming and very driven. And they're not like cliquey or fake or like anything like that. So everyone's very genuine and very inviting and hardworking. And that's just what I like about the UCI community. Also, everyone's very obsessed with Boba, which is not an obsession that I have and I don't really understand, but to each their own. So good for them.
Is UCI or engineering at UCI in particular competitive?
I would say it's very competitive, but I think that's the case with any engineering department in almost any university. So maybe I don't think it was as competitive as I was expecting. But yeah, definitely your grades what's different about college versus high school is that your grades are dependent on everyone else's. There's a curve in pretty much every class. So if everyone does well, then you better do well because you don't want to fall behind that curve. Yeah, and that way it's pretty competitive. Also, you pretty much have to interview for any not research positions, but like design projects and things like that. So in that way, it's competitive, and also you're competing against everyone for job markets. So yeah, post-graduation, you're pretty much competing with a lot of people. So in that way, it's competitive. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
What do you like or dislike about the quarter system?
So I actually really like the quarter system. I like the fact that you can take a lot of classes and that every quarter it switches and that you get to take more in different classes. So you're not if you're taking a class that you don't really like, you don't have to wait an entire semester to then take a new one. And I really like that. I also like that you're done with finals before your break. So before winter break, you're done with your finals for fall break. So you actually get to relax over breaks. You get to relax over winter, spring, and summer. So that's something that I really like about the quarter system. One thing I don't like about it is that you don't get in you don't really get into depth on the material as much as you would if you were taking it first semester. Like everything goes by so quickly that you're learning a lot on the surface level wise, and you don't get to go really in depth with it, which is kind of a shame because I feel like we would learn more if we could go more into depth on it. Which I guess is why we have like series where there's like a part A, B, and C, and that's what you get each quarter.
What do you like to do during study breaks?
So I have an addiction to reading books. So during study breaks, I tend to either read a book, listen to music, because I'm always walking around listening to music, or realistically eating food. Like I'll definitely snack in between during the study break. So typically it could be all three at the same time.
Are you currently taking classes right now?
Yes, I'm currently taking 6 classes in fall 2020.
What classes are you taking right now?
So I'm currently taking EECS 145, which is electrical engineering analysis, kind of like an upper division math course with engineering application. Then I'm taking ECS 152A, which is a digital signal processing course, and the first one. And then I'm taking ECS 170A, which is electronics 1, circuits and semiconductors, as well as the lab component to it, which is ECS 170LA. And then I'm taking physics 52A, which is fundamentals of experimental physics. It's pretty much what you learn in physics 7E, but now it's like the lab component of it. So we get to learn that. And then I'm also taking, last but not least, I'm taking European Studies 10, which is about Europe and modernity, which is kind of later parts of European history.
What class are you looking forward to taking in the future?
So there's quite a few classes that I really want to take. For engineering courses, I want to take BME 140, which is a biomedical electronics course. I also want to take ECS 179, which is a MEMS course, which stands for Micro Electromechanical Systems. And that's kind of where my research is focused and something that I want to do, or continue researching through grad school, and what I eventually want to do research in if I go to faculty or if I go to a company or whatever. So I feel like that's a course that would be very relevant and kind of important to take. And then I also am looking forward to ECS 144 and 188, which are more, I think 144 is a antennas design course, which is it's for my specialization. So it sounds interesting. So I'm kind of really excited to be taking that course. Otherwise, outside of engineering, I've really wanted to take Classics 45A, which is Greek mythology. Since I was kind of really into Greek mythology when I was in high school and middle school. Also, I've heard the professor is amazing. I just don't know if I'll have enough time.
What is one campus resource that has helped you a lot during your time at UCI?
So for the most part, I don't really use a lot of campus resources. I tend to find most things myself online through the campus websites. But of the ones that I've used, the College and Career Center is great. I went to them a few times to look up like internship stuff, and I learned about a job shadowing opportunity through them for spring quarters, so they've been helpful there. Also, they do a lot of resume workshops. I haven't attended it, but I heard it's very useful, and I think I'll attend it in the future.
What is your favorite memory at UCI?
I'd say there's a lot of great memories from life in the dorms. So it's me and my friends just acting like fools at night. I remember this one time, I remember waking up at like 3 a.m. because some person in our dorm left a cake outside for the raccoons, and then all the raccoons came, and it was just a whole thing, and it's just a vivid memory, and it was just a really funny moment. And then just other times of just collective misery, just among other students, either like post-final or post-midterm, if it was really difficult or didn't go well, just that whole like camaraderie afterwards where everyone's just like, what was that kind of moments. Things like that really stand out as well, because it's just like, it's when you feel the most community, I'd say. There's also really funny times in class. In one of my, and I think it was engineering 1A, so it was the chem course, just the dynamic between the TAs was hilarious. So there was just one time that one made a joke and the other one like smacked him with a chalkboard eraser and just left a large white mark. It was just a funny moment. I wish I could explain it better, but yeah, that was a fun time too.
Who is a fellow engineer or engineering student who inspires you?
It's kind of difficult for me to think of any particular engineering student that inspires me. In terms of engineers that have inspired me, it's mostly been engineers in my family. So my brother has been very inspirational to me. My dad has been very inspirational to me. Their like passion and drive for what they do and their research and their love for engineering is something that's always inspired me, and something that I'm really thankful that I kind of got to see that example as I've gone through like difficult parts, as I've started going through the difficult learning parts of engineering. Just seeing their joy for it is something I'm really grateful for. And then there's definitely been a few graduate students at UCI who have just amazing work ethics and are great people, and I'm definitely inspired by them.
And that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, Daria, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of our latest videos.